Hi, welcome back to Fairy Tales and Fables. It has been a while, but I thought I'd come back and share with you a tutorial on how to make a moon staring hare. It is, after all, that time of year again, isn't it? So let's get on with the video. I'm going to start with this bit of wool, my core wool, and I'm going to start by making his body. I'm going to do his legs separately, and then I'll be putting the felt fur, the felt that I've chosen for his fur, I'll be putting that on his legs before I actually attach them to the body. I'm going to needle felt that and start getting the shape of my moon staring hare. Okay, so you can see here I've just started to shape his legs. So this is going to be his thigh in here. So I'm going to shape the other side now. Okay, so while I'm shaping the legs, the actual thigh parts of the legs, I'm going to bear in mind that they're quite pointed at the top. So this is going to be the tops of his legs, and they're going to be quite pointed at the top because they're quite slender. They're almost like frog's legs, the hare's legs. So use the big needle. So there we have a nice sort of shape going on there, where his foot's going to come out at the bottom like so. So I'm going to do the other side to match this one. Okay, so we've got his back curved now, and we've got a bit of a chest going on here. What we need to do is curve the wool round like this, almost like an S shape, before we can then form the head. So now I'm just going to finish getting his chest and then bringing his neck up before I put his head on the top. Okay, so from a side point of view, I've got his chest and I've got his back curve round and then his neck coming up. And now I'm going to shape his head looking up towards the moon. So I'll give him a little bit of a neck in here, make that a little bit thinner. And his head kind of more or less goes straight up from that point. Okay, so I've got the initial shape now. I've got his legs, got his body, his arched back, we've got his chest. His front legs are going to be coming down under here. So I'm going to shape his neck and get his head in proportion, and then once that's done I can concentrate on getting his legs sorted. But before I actually attach the legs, I'm going to cover them with the felt fibres that I've chosen for his fur. It's much easier to put that on the legs before you attach the legs to his body, than it is to actually attach the legs first and then get round all the little nooks and crannies and folds with your chosen fibre for the fur. So I'm going to get the head shape finished, and then I'll crack on with his legs. So you see here, I'm just giving myself a rough idea where I'm going to put his cheekbone. Now I've just put a couple of little holes to give me an idea whereabouts his eyes are going to be. I'm still putting the shape in his head, and he will have to have eyebrows over the top of his eyes because hares have actually got quite a broad eyebrow. But that gives me a rough idea. Now his nose shape is it's not too bad actually, it's quite straight down to the nose. And then there's the muzzle, that will come up to the eye. Ready for the cheekbone. I'm just going to give him a little bit of a mouth. Just a little curvy arch. There's his muzzles coming on. Do the same on this side. So where his mouth is coming round, I'm bringing it up round the side of his nose, or his muzzle as I keep calling it, just to give it some shape. Okay, it's already starting to look a bit like a hare. I'll keep giving that a bit more shaping. Okay, so I've got his little cheekbones here. I'm quite happy with the way they are. They're quite prominent, a hare's cheekbones, and they do tend to kind of slope down from the eye socket. So if I hold it at that angle, it's not very easy to see, but you can see how they are sloping down from the eye socket. Okay, and that's the kind of shape that you're looking for. Looking down at the top of his head, for me, so that would be like that for you. You can see how his muzzle comes in here. His nose is still quite bulbous. I have yet to felt that in place, but you can see how the shape of the head from the cheekbone right the way round to the side of the muzzle and up to the eye. It's almost like this sort of shape, like a C kind of shape. How that works. And then what I'm going to do now for the nose is I'm just going to felt it in the front. Okay, and then his nose shape, the actual nose, is just almost like a straight kind of nose, a little slightly curved, but pretty straight. There's no dip in it or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little V in here, and that would be the shape of his nose. It's like a little V, and then his mouth in underneath. So if I turn him round so I can see, I'll put a little V in. marks his nose, and then I can come down and go round. It's not very easy to explain. So this is his mouth here underneath, this is his chin. So I'm putting that mouth that I put in a minute ago, I'm going to put that back in. There we go, and then we've got a little line there that goes up to his nose, and then just needle felt these side bits. Don't know what you'd call them. Side bits is the top of his mouth, isn't it? It's amazing how you learn the muscle structures of animals and things when you're needle felting. You start to learn where bits are and what shapes various animals' heads are, and it's kind of helped me learn how to draw a little bit. I'm still no good at drawing, but it has given me more of an idea about muscle tone and things like that. I suppose in a way you're sculpting, aren't you? So you have to learn about the shapes of the animals and where their mouths are and their jaws and their noses, and whether they've got prominent cheekbones or they haven't. Yeah, I'm kind of happy with that. Okay, so I'm going to elongate his mouth just a little bit along there like so, so that when I hold his head to the side, you can see his nose. This is where his nose is, this is around the bottom or his top lip, and he's got his little mouthpiece under here and his eye. So you can see how his head is shaping up nicely now. Okay, right, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to now do his front legs. So I'm going to take my bit of felt, I'm going to use my 3-pronged needle, and I'm just going to work my way up here like so. Fold that over there like that. Fold it in on itself again. And then I'm going to create a little paw at the bottom. Okay, and then work my way up his leg. I'm going to work it quite a lot because I want it to be quite stiff, and at the same time I want it to be quite thin. I don't want it to be too chunky, especially as I'm putting fur or you know, felt fibres on top of that to colour it. So a good way when you're doing something round to help tie the fibres together would be to roll it between your hands. And this tends to knot everything up a bit more. Good thickness. That's obviously going to come here like so. So we're nearly in place, a little bit more. Okay, and then that will be going in there like so. That one and one beside it. What I'm going to do is I've taken some of this felt off, but I'm actually going to add a bit more to the top of this leg because I feel like it should be getting fatter as it goes up rather than staying the same width. So just, you know, you can always add felt if something doesn't look quite right. You can always add to it, or if you've over felted it and it's too small or it's too tight or it's not the right shape but you've made it too tight and you can't, it's yeah, particularly if it's too small, you've over felted it, it's too small, you can use, you know, a little pokey as I call them. Mine's gone walkabout somewhere, but yeah, it's just a little bradawl, and you can use it to pull the fibres back out again if you've over felted it. So you can't really ever make a mistake. Felting is very, very forgiving. If you do it wrong, there's usually ways you can either pull it out or you can, you know, add to it, just add bits to it. If you find that the head is too small, then add more fibre to it, build it up. That's better, it's a little bit thicker at the top. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that for that leg. Ooh. Because that will go in place under his chest, under his breastbone, when I've covered it in the chosen fibres for his fur. So in the meantime, I'm going to make his second leg, then I can cover them and get them on the rabbit. Okay, so I've got his two front legs, and now I'm going to bring that a bit closer. I'm now going to do his back legs, because although we've got his legs here that we've felted in so far, we do need a couple of bits, feet to come out underneath. So I will get his back legs done. I'm giving him some big thumper feet. And again, I'm going to cover these with the chosen colour for his outer fur, as it were, before I put them onto his body. It's going to be slightly wider by his toes, where his toes are. Okay, put his heel in. So I've just bent the felt over, and now I can put the back of his heel in, which is reasonably pointy. Something like that. And then that I will felt into his leg, just to make his leg a little bit chunkier. So I'm going to do another foot like this, and then we will cover his feet and his legs. Now I've chosen a nice brown and cream mix for my fur colour for my hair. This one I've got from the Felt Box. Brilliant company, do all sorts of different types of felts, different colours, bits and pieces that you need for needle felting. It's worth having a look. And no, they're not sponsoring, they're just a good company, one of the good companies that I use. So it's always good to have a little look on, you know, Amazon or eBay, wherever. And I'm going to use this one for his fur because it's much easier when you've got a blend that's already mixed up for you. Nice big roll of bats. One day I'll be able to get all my own sheep's wool and dye it myself. Anyway, I'm going to cover his legs. So literally this, I mean, this is lovely because it's not only is it the right texture, it's the right colours, and it's just so easy to use. Let's wrap that round and felt it in place and job's done. I have got so many projects in my head to get done this year. I have got lots and lots of recycled metal plant pots and things that I have collected from the recycle centre that are all sitting on my balcony getting very wet, that all need to be painted and done up and treated. Some that I'm going to hang from my balcony with flowers in for for the summer, and some that I have a watering can. I've got a very old-fashioned watering can that has got a lump of concrete stuck to the top of it, which I'm going to take off. Try and figure out how to get that off, and then I'm going to paint that one and make that look all nice to use in my garden. Oh, there's lots of things, lots and lots of little metal things that I've collected. I've got lots and lots of different pieces of wood that I've found, whether it be branches, tree branches, or bits of driftwood that I've picked up in my travels that I want to carve or pyrography pictures on them. I have got wood slices from, actually it was from my mum's Christmas tree in 2023, and I put the wood in the back of her cellar and let it season till now, and I'm hoping that my wonderful brother will come along and chop it all up in slices for me so that I can do something useful with that. There we go. Anyway, so that's one of his little legs done, ready to go on the front of his body. And now I'm going to cover the other one and his two back legs and get them done, ready to put on the actual hair. Right, so I've got my front legs and my back legs done, ready. I'm going to start putting these on to my hair, getting them fixed into place, starting with his back legs. So I'm going to, this is the bottom of the front of his leg, so I'm going to put this in position and then I'm just going to felt it into place. If I can find my needle. There's his first foot, back leg. Already, just define his knee a little bit more. Okay, and now to put his second one on. Okay, so that's his back legs on there now, all done. I have added a wee bit more felt on his knees to make his knees a little bit more standy outy, because they were quite thin by the time I'd finished putting his feet on. I noticed that although his feet are supposed to be quite big, they were actually making the rest of his legs look absolutely tiny. So I've put some more of that on. I will reshape them at the back of the leg here and the back of the knee when I've put the his fur coat on. When I've done that, that'll be fine. So now I'm just going to needle felt his front arm. I'm going to just bring it across his body. Okay, and then take that into like where his shoulder and chest is naturally. Now generally they do have quite a bit of a shoulder on them, so if you've done what I've done and you've put his arm, or his front leg I should say, on and left a bit of I've got a ridge there that I don't really want. Then you can always add a bit of extra felt. Over there. So there we go. Take that up a little bit tighter into his back of his arm. And we have a front leg. So there we have him now with both his legs, or both his legs, all four of his legs I should say. So my next job is to cover all of the rest of his body in this lovely hair shade brown fibre. Okay, so I'm going to make his ears now. So I'm going to take a little bit of my carded wool that I'd put to one side for his ear rolls, and I'm going to shape those. I'm going to use my special tool. I'm going to use this one. You can use a 3-pronged needle, you can just use one single needle, but I find it's going to be easier to use the big one. It's got 5 needles in it, and that's going to give me a flatter piece of felt, as you'll see. And I want his ears to be quite long, so I'm just going to pull that out a little bit, do a rough ear shape, and I'm going to tuck all the edges in. Give him a nice point. Okay, so you see what I mean by it having quite a flat surface. By using that, it just makes it a lot quicker, a lot easier. If you have got one of those, that's what that's good for. And I'm going to take a little bit of white creamy felt now. To put on the inside of his ears, again using my big one. Don't need to be too precise, it doesn't matter if it's a little bit fluffy. Okay, and a little bit of peach. There we go. And then just to finish his ear off, I'll fold it in half. And just seal the bottom so that it holds it in place. Now what you can do, just sharpen that up, is by pinching that little bit that you've felted together, if you using a 3 or a 1 even needle holder, you can just needle felt. What I'm doing is I'm actually pulling, so I'm holding on to that, I'm needle felting inside the ear hole just there, and I'm pulling this at the same time, because as it's catching onto my rice bag, it's giving me a nice little indentation. And then what I do, if I don't want to have all the furry bit at the back, I can just trim that off. Okay, so I'm just going to tidy up his point. There we go. And then we have a nice ear, and it's up to you whether you want his ears going down or sticking up or how you want them. But that's his first ear. I'm going to get on and make his second one. Now I'm going to make his tail, so just pulling that out, making it longer fibres. Because it's carded, it's not quite the same as if I was using merino in long strands. So I'm just going to make a fluffy bit like that, and they have, actually I'm not going to use quite as much as that, I'm going to use that little bit. Some of my cream, I'm going to put that on the outside, and then they have a little bit of black on their tails. See, that's the difference. That's the carded wool, and this is more merino, so it's longer and fluffier, more like hair. So just gonna fold that over like that. Brush that one up, pull those bits out. Okay, and then that, when it goes onto him, the brown bit actually goes against his body, and the white bit and the black bit go up on the outside, and that's how that will work. So get his ears and his tail onto his body. Okay, so I've chopped off a little bit of the stalk of the eye here to make it a little bit shorter, because you don't need them really long to bore their way in through the holes. I've put a little bit of glue on there. I'm just going to top it up in his eye socket, which I've pressed his eye socket with my 3-pronged needle just to make sure that the socket is deep enough. And now I'm going to put the eye in. Oops, try and put it in straight. Bearing in mind that these creations are not really designed for children, so you know, using a good glue to make sure that those eyes are going to stay in place is the way forward. But just bear in mind, where young children are concerned, you know, if they're playing with one of these as a toy and they're chewing it, there's always that awful possibility that they might choke on some of the small bits of plastic. So please be very mindful when you're making these things that they are not suitable for children. But okay, so his eyes are in place now. I'm going to leave him for a little while to just let them dry for a bit before I start putting his ears on and his chest and his tail. Okay, so I've got some cream wool here, and I'm going to use that now to go on his chest. So I'm going to felt that in. I'm going to felt it in nice and tight around the neck area up here. But as I go down towards in between his front legs here, I'm just gonna do it quite loosely, like so. Okay, let me just take you back out a wee bit. There we go. So he's got his little bit of chest fluff there. Okay, but you don't need to be too tight with it around there. Just making sure you've got it felted in around his neck, because that's where it's going to keep it, you know. Keep it in place. So there we go. We just do that. That's nice. Nice little hairy chest he's got. A hare with a hairy chest, really. And now I'm going to put his eyebrows. I'm going to do him some little eyebrows over his eyes. And to do that, I'm going to use a piece of the fur that I used for his fur, for his body. And I'm just going to roll it up a little bit. Like so. Give it a bit of a roll. And then I'm going to put it over his eye. So I'm going to start off by his nose and take it over his eye like that. So just like a U shape. I felt it in on the one side. And then, oops, his eyes fell out. That's what comes from not letting them dry properly. Put that back in there. Okay, and then felt that into his nose. And round his eye. Over the top of his head. Alright, so here he is with his eyes. Now I'm going to put his mouth and his nose in place, and for that I'm going to use some peach. I'm going to use some peach for his, I'm going to use a little bit of peach. I'm just going to put that in the, I'm not quite sure where to, there we go. Just going to put that into that little triangle shape that I've made. so. From the side of his cheek around his mouth. Okay. Okay, so I think we're about ready now for his tail and his ears. Obviously made the ears before. I've got to decide now whether I'm going to want them going downwards or whether I'm going to want them going upwards. If I pull this out a little bit more, you may be able to see. So I could have them both going up. I can have them both going down. Being a moon staring hare. One up and one down. I quite like the one up, one down, so I'm going to go for the one up, one down. I'll start off with one up. So on the top of his head, put the ear in the right place. And needle felt that in. Do it from inside as well. Okay, so you've got an ear going upwards. Oh, I've got felt everywhere. And I'm going to do his other ear hanging down his back. I think that's how he wants his ears. Okay. Okay. There we go. So you've got one ear up and one ear down. Am I happy with that? I'm not sure. I think actually I might do both ears coming down. Okay, so we're going to go for both ears coming down. So I'll get that done and then we'll put his tail on. He's got his ears now coming down his back, which I much prefer. And just tidy them up a little bit around the edges. Because he's got scruffy ears. We don't want hares with scruffy ears, do we? That's not going to be very fetching. Okay, and that one. There we go. Right. So that's his ears done. Now we've got to put his little tail on, which I have here somewhere. Yeah, and remember the black part of the tail goes on the outside, okay? So his tail would go on like this, and you've got to make sure you get it right in the right spot, because they're very fussy about where you put their tails and whether you get them on right or not. but it's looking promising. Okay, and what I sometimes do is I just give that a little bit of a felt just for it to keep its shape, because that's a lovely shape we've got there. There we go. That's a lovely tail. A lovely tail to go with his lovely ears and his lovely everything else. Right, I've got my very trusty fishing line and my very long needle, which I'm going to thread, ready to sew his whiskers on. So to sew whiskers on, I just thread that through the needle like you would. Give myself a nice bit of line, and then I'm going to go straight through his nose. Okay, so straight through his nose where I would like his whiskers to be. Pull it through and stop and chop that one off. And be very careful when you do the next one that you don't accidentally, when you're pulling it through, pull the one that you've just done through as well. So then, now that I've put his 3 whiskers in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this side out just a little bit, not right out, just a little bit, and then with my glue I'm going to try and blob just a little tiny bit of glue on each one of those whiskers. Ooh, just like that. It's going to drip, but before it drips I'm going to pull the whiskers back through and then just dab the glue with my finger. There we go. And that should be enough glue to hold your whiskers into place. And I'm going to cut, I'm just going to trim these whiskers so that they stay in the places that I want them to stay. I'm going to keep them reasonably long. There we go. I don't know how clear you can see that, but he's got his 6 whiskers. And my hair is done. He's all finished.